today, we're going to talk about something I think that every customer ops leader feels, the challenge of keeping your teams engaged. Not just engaged, but motivated and developing and growing in an environment that, frankly, is not getting any simpler to work in, right? Things are not getting easier. They're getting more challenging as we go on. We are joined by Nathan Casella. Nathan has been a longstanding member, as Paul mentioned, of our customer support executive brain trust and the community. He's also spent more than 20 years inside customer-facing organizations, and I think he likes to ask the one question that we all should be asking: what does my team need to actually do their best work? Said Hanwha Vision America, that's where Nathan is. He's answered that question, and he's actually developed a whole organization. I think he started with a group of, what, 7 at one point in time, and you
Yep.
built it to a group of 50 at this point. Um, and so I think you've achieved a lot of this in part by approaching, I would call it team governance, for lack of a better term, through what I think what you use is the people first lens.
Yep.
So the results that you hear will speak for themselves, but it's really about, what do we need to do and get our group going. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This is something that's near and dear to me when we talk about this, because one of those most important things organizationally is making sure you are functioning, at least from my perspective, as a service leader, right? You need to be that servant leader. You need to be able to move these roadblocks for your individuals, and that's what this is all about, right? This is how we approach this to make sure our teams are well taken care of and are able to work in a fashion that allows them to focus on those motivating factors that bring them to work every day and how they approach that work. So that's really what the gist of how I approach everything is, and it's fundamentally working over the last 4 years.
Well, we were I posted about this. You and I was on a submarine tour when you and I chatted about this,
Mhm.
and the one thing that came through amongst nuclear missiles is crazy. But one thing you said was that the idea that internal employee experience directly, the internal folks, right, what their experience is directly impacts how the customer is actually dealt with on that side.
Yeah.
That seems to be a big theme. Can you kind of dive into that a bit?
So if you have individuals who are feeling heard, who are feeling responded to, who are not treated as a resource, and I think at some point in something I was writing, I was talking about how employees need to be looked at as less of like a computer, right? Where they're just designed to do a task versus an individual contributor to the organization. When those individuals or those team members start to feel that versus feeling as a resource, that increases um, their experience with the organization, the way they are perceiving the organization is treating them and investing in them and believing in them. And then they pass that over to the customer, because if they're trusting the organization, they know the customer should trust the organization and should trust what's going forward, and that we have the best interest in mind. And that's always a challenge, especially when you're a sales organization. As we're getting into more and more in life, you become jaded as a customer, looking at increased prices and everything that's going on. But when you have an employee that's happy to talk to you, if from sales to customer service, even to product management, when they go to customer meetings, because I'll attend those from time to time, these individuals that are genuinely excited and genuinely feeling good about the organization generate that to everybody they interact with.
I'm going to guess that when you first walked into your situation, that was not the scenario that you came up
No,
with.
hardly. We had a team. I inherited a team of 7 when I came in here in 2021. They were averaging about 3,500 calls a month. And they were just overwhelmed, overworked. They were burning out left and right. There was no career advancement path or anything else. So I tend to utilize a framework that I've kind of piecemeal together from multiple CI frameworks across the board, and I call it stabilize, build, improve. And the entire idea behind this is it's taking bits of like ITIL and bits of Six Sigma together, but it's always doing it with a people focused lens, right? So we look at things. When I came in here, I spent probably the first month or two getting to know the team, having them do personalized SWOT analysis, analyses, um,
Analyses.
analyses. to be able to tell me what, like, where they thought their strengths and weaknesses were. I met with each of them individually. Hell, I have a team of 50 now, and I still try to make like 15, 20 minutes a month to try to just talk with them every now and then, even if I'm on my way home, just to like give one of them a call on the West Coast and be like, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? But it's that knowledge about what they want to do and what they want to be that helps develop your path here and understanding those motivators, right? When we look at motivating factors, there's like people often think compensation motivates your team
Yeah.
and gets it
Pay
going,
them
but
more.
yeah, but that's often a hygiene factor. At this point, every employee expects to be paid what their value, their own perceived value. But like, I don't show up for work for the pay, like do show up to work for the paycheck, but I I show up to work and there's other motivating factors. I actually have them on my board every day, like achievement, interest, responsibility, and advancement, right? And I try to look at what I am doing for myself each day, but I also try to make sure that each of my employees are having these type of things addressed. And we put together an incentive program that looks at each of these to try to make sure it was addressing it for all the employees across the board. Like what's important to one, somebody's family, like mention their family was very important to them. So we have um, based on metrics, we have a turnaround where if you are a top achiever for whatever month, you get a stipend of $150 to go out to dinner with your family. Because I understand this work takes you away from your family and really burns into that time every now and then. So that's what this governance is about, and that's what that entire sequence of continuous improvement is about. You stabilize what's going on. When I came in, like I said, 7 individuals, no structure, no anything. Found out what they were about, understood the team in general, then built processes that were around how that team was working in their current baseline, and then governance that supported the individuals to get forward with that and how to continue to grow with that. Then when we started to build, expand the team, and then we constantly, now at this point, we're just in an improvement model at this point, working to figure out what's working for the individuals as a whole that keeps them motivated, that keeps them moving forward in the organization, and keeps them knowing that there's a way that they will advance and this organization is investing in them.
It sounds like the stabilized piece is something that you yourself were able to kind of through a non-scalable kind of solution. You yourself was able to, let me go talk to them. Let me go find out. But the building must involve working with others. So what were some of the challenges when you're actually going and saying, all right, I understand kind of the current situation. We want to build. That means change. How do you kind of, what were some of the challenges you ran into and how did you actually overcome those?
Well, I mean, everybody's struggling with cost inflation and headcount inflation as you go. When you look at I did benchmarking against our competitors and what our competitors were doing, where our organization as a whole was at, one of our top competitors, I think, when I first did the benchmarking, had like 30 technical support employees. And this is before I started absorbing the other teams in here, but 30 technical support employees to our 7. And we were number 3 organizationally at that time as a leader. Like I think I'm ranked number 3 in the US. Um, so I was trying to show the differentiation between this, but I was also trying to show how these employees here that we had were capable of more than what they were doing. So if we gave them the opportunity and we increased our headcount, we would actually benefit from these individuals who were tenured here. There were people when I got here that were here for 12 years that had just been in support for 12 years. But these individuals now, I have one of them managing my service desk on the way in. I have one of them who is a supervisor here. I have one that has moved up to an engineering team who handles post-sales support and essentially runs the engineering team for post-sales support for Fortune 500 companies. But all these individuals didn't have a chance to do this until we made the investment. So by showing we could get more value out of the investment in these people and out of investing into more staff, we were able to build this. And that's the key, that little build section there, because it's always focused on what those individuals need. Like there's a guy who's been here for 12 years still, that did not want anything other than to come in and do his job. And that was it. So that's his motivator is literally coming in, doing his job 9 to 5 and going home to be with his family. That it works for him. That's worked for him for 12 years. The other individual wanted to grow, wanted to achieve, wanted to do more in the organization. He's the one that's managing the service desk right now.
So
So,
it's
good. Sorry.
well, I would say it sounds like it's a very tailored kind of almost to the individual. There's the bench. I love the benchmarking idea because it kind of says, here's the art of the possible. We're not
Mhm.
asking for crazy, unrealistic things. So here's how other people have actually, best demonstrated practices concept. But then it sounds like you took that and said, okay, we can set the bar higher, but it's not a one size fits all. You got to talk to the
No,
folks.
and it never is. That's I think that the challenge with keeping people motivated overall in the organization. A lot of HR and a lot of leaders try to say, okay, we can just apply, um, like I don't know, summer Fridays, hypothetically, right? But maybe somebody doesn't want summer Fridays. Maybe somebody needs to come in a half hour later in the morning, and that kind of works for them. So, that working around the way people work makes it or need to work makes it a little more tailored. And again, like this all sounds, to some individuals, this may sound very granola, if you will. But the results are plain. Like I ended 2025 coming from with a 90% CSAT score. We had a average handle time of about 45 minutes, and because most of our calls, just because of the demographic of our organization, are handled real time. Like we have to resolve on the phone while they're there. So about a 45-minute handle time. Our average reopen ticket was less than 5%, I think, of the tickets we had. And there's one other one that I can't remember off the top of my head. Oh, our average answer time was under a minute. So the fact that
Well,
we've done this, grown the team, and the 50 employees I have are in different business units. I want to point that out. So I have 50 support employees. I have my knowledge management team. I have my technical training team. Wendy, we're kind of in the same area there. Um, but I have these groups, and I apply the same methodology to all of them, but the support is where I can measure this easily because I have the metrics to turn around and say this works. Additionally, as we were kind of discussing earlier, my team was just like literally today, I was just sent the link. My team was recognized and won an industry award for support and service. So this methodology and this approach works, and it's been recognized in the security industry. Um, it's just a matter of it takes time and energy and dedication as the leader to get it started, and then make sure you have that succession planning for yourself in place. So now that I've stepped out of doing the day-to-day operations on this, and I'm now working on bringing similar things to the global support infrastructure, the woman I hired as a manager, Marianne, continues to enforce and continues to work those enforce the or reinforce rather the ideas and the ideology that I came up with and we kind of approached with. So
the virtuous cycle. It sounds like you're now in this improved spot. It's a very virtuous cycle. You kind of demonstrated we can do it, and we've got some, as you mentioned, the governance process in place to kind of like let this take forward. And now you can scale, and like Marianne's taken over and kind of doing what you were
exactly.
doing.
Exactly. And that's where you always want to get to, right? You want to be able to bring this to scale, and you want to be able to have your organization benefit from what you're doing. This isn't about you benefiting. It's about bringing that benefit to your employees and letting that benefit that that experience they're getting, again, drive the customer experience and benefit the organization as a whole.
Was there potentially some downside? You have to lose some folks along the way that just didn't kind of buy into the new way of doing things?
Yes, but interestingly enough, and I was actually just talking to HR about this earlier in the week. We, for the last 2 years, we have had zero voluntary attrition. There have obviously been some individuals that didn't like meet what they needed to do, and that is the natural course of anything as somebody who works in support or a leader, but it wasn't dissatisfaction, and I think that's what matters here. People stayed and they worked and they were let go because of performance, not necessarily because of dissatisfaction with the organization. They just couldn't keep up. Like individuals were, I'll give a perfect example with them. You would have individuals who were allotted training time and would not take the training time and then have low ticket counts. And you'd be like, all right, man, like, look, like we've obviously you try to develop them and you try to grow them, but at the same time, there's only so much you can do with that. So when you put those factors in place, when you understand that this is what I give, this is what I can offer, and that motivation is not working, you obviously throw that out, try something else. But if that continues to work, then you understand it's not the right fit. And
I
that's where you get there.
I think that's actually not a bad thing because I think people realize that some folks are not able to cut it, and I want to be with a group of folks that can, and we can do it, and those that can't have to move forward. All right, I'm going to wrap up with kind of one last question here. So you've successfully done this. You've got an award. I'm not sure if we got that link. I think it's on your LinkedIn profile, but we'll get it in the
Sure.
chat. That's fabulous. But if you were starting, I mean, you succeeded, but if you had to start over again, is there one thing you would say? One thing. Think of this as you embark on this kind of process.
Well, I am starting over again with the training team that was just handed to me. So,
All right, all right.
um, the way I've tried to approach this a little differently instead of owning the whole thing, trying to impart a lot of the beginning stages of this, the stabilizing and the self-benchmarking, what are they capable of doing now, onto them to try to teach it because I realized like until I had the woman who's managing the team right now come in, I failed to prepare anybody to do this correctly other than me. And I realized if I had started off by teaching the methodology and teaching the ideals, it would have probably been better overall, and it would have been a cleaner adoption versus me having to constantly make sure I was doing it right and executing. I didn't have a partner in it initially. So this one, with the training team and now having them come under me, it's been something that I'm making the two leads on the team work with and try to understand so they know how to do this for the rest of their group.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so easy. You have success in these things, and you've done it yourself, but then you realize I got to replace myself. I've got to kind of move
Mhm.
on and go up. And so it's I guess is what the teach a man to fish. Catch a fish, teach a man to fish. Is that kind of thing. But
100%.
it's hard to get that. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I hope that was it. I'm not sure there's any questions from the group. If there were, this would be a great time to jump them in, drop them in here. It sounds simple, but it's very clear, which I like, and very practical. We're not like using higher level integrals of math and things like that, treating people fairly, understanding what the situation is. I love to stabilize, to build, and then improve. That's a great approach.